Chioma, leave my house tonight. Carry your bags and go.
Tochi, it is raining. Where do you want me to go at this time?
I don't care. I don't ever want to see you in my house again. You barren woman! I am tired of feeding a barren woman. Leave my house! You will never marry again, you hear me? One day you will come back here and beg me.
You can say whatever you like, but answer me one small question. Are you my God?
If you are new here, welcome to True Tales by Efe, where we tell African stories that shake you, shape you, and refuse to let you stay the same. Hit subscribe and turn on that notification bell right now. This is the story of Chioma, and if you think you already know how a story like this ends, stay with me to the very last minute, because I promise you, this one does not end the way Tochi thought it would. Chioma did not grow up chasing anybody's love. She never had to chase it. It came to her the way sunlight comes to a window left open, freely, without being asked. She was the kind of child that made mothers in her compound say to their own daughters, "Why can't you greet elders the way that Chioma greets people?" Everyone who crossed her path, even for 1 minute, walked away with something good to say about her. She was the first of 4 children, and in a house like theirs, being first was not a title, it was a job description. Her mother sold provisions in a small shop close to the market, up before the cock crowed, home after dark, her hands smelling permanently of rice and gari and groundnut oil. Her father drove for a private transport firm in the city, gone from sunrise, some weeks gone for days at a stretch. Chioma grew up watching her mother arrange things on a shelf with the care other women used to arrange jewelry. And she grew up understanding, without anyone teaching her directly, that a family stays standing because somebody inside it refuses to fall. Then her mother became sick. It did not come all at once. It came the way most heavy things come, quietly at first. A cough that would not leave, a tiredness that sleep no longer fixed, weight dropping off a woman who used to be solid as a wall. By the time the hospital gave it a name, the name no longer mattered because the money to fight it did not exist, and within months, Chioma's mother was gone. The night before she died, Chioma called her to sit beside her bed. Her hands, once quick enough to count change without looking, now lay still on top of the wrapper. "Chioma, come and hold my hand." "Mama, don't talk like this. You will be fine." "Hold my hand and listen to me, because I may not get another chance to say this properly to you. You are the first child. After me, your father will need you more than he will ever say with his mouth. Your brothers and your sister will look at you the way they used to look at me. I am not telling you this to frighten you. I am telling you this because I trust you to carry it. But hear me well, Chioma. Whatever this life brings you, wherever it takes you, do not ever let another person's voice become louder in your own head than your own voice. A woman who forgets how to speak for herself has lost more than her tongue. She has lost herself. Promise me you will remember your own voice, even on the day it is hardest to use it." "I promise, Mama." "Say it again." "I will remember my own voice." Her mother smiled, and by the following evening, she was gone. Grief in a poor house does not get the luxury of time. Chioma's father, a quiet man who had never once raised his voice at his wife or his children, suddenly found himself alone with 4 young mouths and a job that barely covered fuel and food, let alone school fees and rent. They tried to keep the shop running in her memory, but the landlord chose exactly that season to raise the rent, as landlords sometimes do when they smell a family that has just lost its strongest hand. The shop closed. The family shifted to something smaller, a wooden table by the roadside where Chioma, now the woman of the house at 17, sold tomatoes and fresh pepper in the mornings before rushing her siblings off to school. It was not the life anyone had planned. It was the life that was left. If you have ever watched a family lose its center overnight and somehow still find a way to wake up the next morning, tell us in the comments what word you would use to describe that kind of strength, because I think there should be a better word for it than strong. A few months into that new harder life, Chioma's father's younger sister, Aunty Njideka, came to visit from the city. She took one look at the tomato table, at Chioma's tired eyes, at the weight of a house resting on shoulders far too young to carry, and she made a decision on the spot. Chioma is coming with me, she told her brother. Let her breathe small. Let her see something bigger than this table. And so Chioma packed the little she owned and followed her auntie to the city. And within a year, through hard study and a scholarship her auntie fought hard to secure, she gained admission into the university. It should have been the easiest and brightest chapter of her life. In many ways, it was. In one very important way, it was not. Because something else was happening to Chioma at the same time her mind was opening. Her body was blooming into a kind of beauty that turns heads on a street and stops conversations in a room. She had always been pretty, but city food, city air, and the confidence of a girl finally getting an education did something to her that made every single man who crossed her path stop and look twice. Her auntie used to joke that Chioma couldn't walk from the gate to the bus stop without at least two men finding a reason to greet her. It was on one such ordinary evening, on her way back from the market with a bag in each hand, that she met Uche. "Excuse me, please, let me help you with that bag," he said, already reaching for the heavier one before she could answer. "I can manage, thank you." "I did not say you could not manage. I said let me help you. There is a difference." Chioma laughed despite herself, and that was how it started. Uche was not from money. He sold phone accessories from a small kiosk near the campus gate and was saving, naira by naira, toward opening a proper electronics shop of his own one day. He was not the kind of man who talked about the future the way some men talk about money they have not yet made. He talked about it the way a builder talks about a foundation, slowly, one block at a time. They became friends first, the kind who call each other at midnight just to laugh about nothing. And somewhere between the laughing and the walking each other home, friendship folded quietly into something more. Uche never once raised his voice at her. With Uche, Chioma felt like herself. One Sunday morning, running late for church, Chioma stepped out of her auntie's compound just as a sleek black car pulled up at the gate across the road, and a tall, dark, impossibly well-dressed young man stepped out of it. He noticed her immediately. "Good morning," he said, his voice soft, almost too soft for a man that size. "Are you also going to St. Michael's?" "Yes, I am, and I am already late." "Then let me not make you later. I am heading there myself. Please, allow me to drop you." She hesitated. A stranger, an expensive car, and a mother's voice somewhere far back in her memory, reminding her to be careful of things wrapped too beautifully. But the service bell would ring in 15 minutes, and he was, after all, going to the very same church, so she reluctantly climbed in. His name was Tochi, and he was, by every visible measure, everything a poor man's daughter is warned to be careful of, and secretly hopes to meet anyway. Old money, the kind that does not shout about itself, but announces itself in the cut of a shirt and the ease of a smile. That first ride to church became a habit. He would find her after the service and drive her home. He would find her the following Sunday and do it again. Slowly, without either of them naming it, Tochi became the second man quietly circling Chioma's heart. And from her upstairs window, Aunty Njideka watched the black car arrive every Sunday, and she smiled the private, calculating smile of a woman already writing a wedding invitation in her head. A few weeks later, Tochi came to the house properly in a suit with a bottle of wine and sat across from Aunty Njideka to declare something no 20-something-year-old friendship is supposed to survive. "Ma, I want to marry Chioma. I have money, I have a good family name, and I promise you she will lack nothing. I only ask for your blessing to approach her father formally." When Chioma heard the news, her answer was immediate. "Auntie, I don't think I want this. I like Tochi as a friend, but marriage is different. I don't feel that way about him." But Aunty Njideka was not a woman who accepted a first no as a final answer. She sat Chioma down one evening, held both her hands the way an elder holds the hands of someone she is about to push toward a decision, and spoke slowly, choosing every word. Chioma, listen to me. You want to reject a handsome, wealthy man's proposal because your heart is somewhere else? Do you want to continue suffering? Do you not remember the tomato table? Do you not remember your younger ones, your brothers, your sister, still struggling back home while you enjoy small comfort here in the city? You don't have a mother again, Chioma. You are their mother now, whether you like the title or not. This man is offering to lift this whole family in one movement. You want to throw that away because of feelings? Feelings will not send your siblings to school. Feelings will not put your father in a better house in his old age. Think, Chioma. Think very well before you answer this man. If your own family has ever laid something like this in front of you, love wrapped up as duty, a decision framed so that saying no feels like betrayal, type the word pressure in the comments below, because Chioma is not the only one who has ever sat in that chair. Chioma thought of little else for days. She thought of the tomato table in the rain, her siblings' worn uniforms, her father's tired shoulders, her mother's grave the family had not even been able to mark properly. Slowly, the weight of being the eldest daughter pressed her decision into a shape she had not chosen for herself. She said yes. Telling Uche was the hardest conversation of her young life. Uche, I am getting married to Tochi. The silence that followed lasted longer than any silence between them ever had. I see, he finally said, his voice steady in the way a man's voice only goes steady when he's working hard to keep it that way. Is this what you want? It is what is best for my family. I cannot ask you to carry my whole family on a kiosk income, Uche. You never had to ask me anything. But if this is your decision, I will not fight you for it. I only want you truly happy, not just comfortable. There is a difference. He walked away that evening carrying a pain he never once let show on his face, because that was the kind of man Uche wants, the kind who loved you enough to step back quietly rather than make your decision harder than it already was. The wedding, when it came, was the kind of event their part of town would talk about for years, funded entirely by Tochi's family, who spared nothing. Asoebi in 3 colors, a live band flown in from another state, rice enough to feed a small village twice over. Chioma's father cried through the entire ceremony, and everyone assumed it was joy. Chioma smiled through every photograph, and everyone assumed the same thing about her. Nobody in that hall knew they were both, in their own separate ways, mourning something. For the first few weeks, Tochi was everything he had promised, attentive, generous, present. But marriage has a way of showing a person's real storeroom once the wedding lights are packed away. And Tochi's storeroom, it turned out, was full of things he had never once mentioned during those Sunday drives to church. It started small. He began coming home later and later, sometimes not coming home at all, offering no explanation and expecting none of his silence to be questioned. Then he moved into his own room down the hallway, separate from hers, and simply stopped inviting her in. Then came the girls, not hidden particularly carefully, women who called his phone at odd hours, whose perfume Chioma would find on his collars, and whose presence in his life he never once bothered to deny. You want to question me now? He would laugh, actually laugh, when she raised it. Chioma, I picked you up from nothing. Remember whose car you are begging a ride in. Before you open your mouth to question a man like me, remember where you came from. He stopped giving her money for the kitchen so that some weeks Chioma quietly cooked with what little she had saved from his small second-hand clothes hustle, rather than beg him and receive another lecture about the gutter he claimed to have rescued her from. And when, after 2 years without a pregnancy, she gently raised the subject of seeing a doctor together, Tochi turned the accusation entirely onto her, as men like him always do. It is you. It is not me. Something is wrong with your body, not mine. You people from your side probably have one problem or another running in your blood. My family has never had this kind of issue. Barren. That word followed Chioma from room to room in that big, beautiful, empty house until it started to feel less like an accusation and more like a name he had given her, replacing the one her own mother had chosen. She told no one. Not her father, who had already sacrificed enough worry for one lifetime, not her siblings, now finally settled and schooling comfortably on the strength of Tochi's early generosity, not even her aunty Njideka, the very woman who had pushed her into that marriage, because some part of Chioma still could not bear to hear, "I told you it would be fine," from the one person who convinced her to ignore her own first answer. She carried it all alone, the way women are taught, wrongly, to carry things alone. And she smiled at church, and she smiled at family gatherings, and behind closed doors, she disappeared a little more each month. If you know a woman right now who is smiling in every photo while quietly disappearing behind closed doors, this video is for her too. Share it with her. She might not tell you herself, but somebody needs to remind her that she is allowed to speak. Which brings us back to that rainy night, 5 years into a marriage that had slowly worn Chioma down to something smaller than the girl who once turned down 2 men in the same season. She had gone to a special evening service at church, the kind that runs long, full of prayer and worship, and came home later than usual, her spirit lighter than it had felt in months. She should have known that lightness never lasts long in that house. Tochi was waiting at the door, and one look at his face told her the night was already ruined. "Where are you coming from at this time?" "Church, Tochi. The evening service ran late. You know that." "Church, church, church. Is that where you learn to disrespect your husband, eh? A barren woman coming home whenever she likes, as if this is her father's house?" Now, I want you to stop for 1 second and put yourself exactly where Chioma was standing. You have given this marriage 5 years of silence. You have swallowed insult after insult, betrayal after betrayal, alone, telling no one, protecting a man who has protected nothing of yours in return. And tonight, of all nights, coming home from prayer, feeling closer to peace than you have felt in long time, he meets you at the door with the same old insult. What would you have done in that exact moment? Would you have apologized one more time the way you always have? Or would something in you finally refuse to bend? Type your honest answer in the comments before you keep reading, because what Chioma did next surprised even her. She did not apologize. For the first time in 3 years, the apology simply did not come. "I said I was in church, Tochi. I owe you no further explanation." "You are talking back to me now. In my own house." Tochi's voice climbed, and this time it did not stop climbing. He grabbed her bag from the hallway and threw it out into the rain that had just begun to fall. Then another bag, then her shoes. "Leave my house tonight. Carry your rags and go. 5 years and you have given me nothing. Not one child. Not one. You are a barren woman, and I am done feeding a barren woman." Neighbors' curtains twitched open, the way they always do at the exact wrong moment. Tochi did not lower his voice for them. If anything, he raised it, wanting the whole compound to witness him finally dealing with his wife. "You will never marry again," he shouted over the rain, dry himself in the doorway while she stood soaked to the skin outside it. "No man will want a woman who cannot open her womb. If any fool is desperate enough to take you, you will enter his house as a 5th wife, behind 4 other women who can actually give him children. And mark my words, one day you will crawl back here and beg me to take you back." And there, standing in the rain with nothing left to lose, her mother's voice from years ago rose up in Chioma's memory, clear as the night it was first spoken. "Do not let another person's voice become louder than your own." She had made a promise beside a deathbed, and for 3 long years she had broken it every single day out of fear. Standing there getting drenched, something in her finally chose to keep it. "Tochi," she said, and her voice, though quiet, did not shake. "You can say whatever you like, but let me ask you one small question before I go. Are you my God?" Tochi opened his mouth to answer and found, for the first time in that marriage, that he had nothing to say. Chioma picked up her soaked bags herself in front of every watching window on that street and walked out of that compound gate without looking back once, and did not stop walking until she reached a hotel where a kind night receptionist, seeing her state, gave her a room and asked no questions until morning. By sunrise, she had made only one call to her father. "Papa, it's Chioma. I need to come home." Her father, that quiet man who had raised 4 children alone on a driver's salary, listened to everything she had kept hidden for 5 years without interrupting once. And when she finished, there was a long silence on the line before he finally spoke. "Chioma, why did you carry all of this alone? Why did none of us know?" "Papa, I was ashamed. I made this choice against my own heart, and I did not want anyone to say I told you so." "Nobody in this family would ever say that to you, my daughter. Come home. Come home now." She went home to a warm welcome, her siblings now grown enough to hug her properly, her father holding her the way he had not since her wedding day. Even Aunty Njideka, hearing the full story, wept and apologized in a way that told Chioma she had never truly understood what her pressure had pushed her into. It would have been easy for Chioma to fold into that pain and stay folded. Many women do, and nobody could blame them for it. But Chioma still had her mother's voice in her, and a hunger 3 cruel years had bruised but never fully killed. Within months, using savings from her old second-hand clothing hustle and a small loan from her father, she started a proper business, buying beads and gold-plated jewelry in bulk and reselling them first to friends, then to strangers who had only heard her name. The market does not care what happened to you in your marriage. It only cares whether you show up and work. And Chioma showed up every single day the way her mother once did. On one trip up country to restock her goods, she ran into a familiar face from her old university days, a classmate she'd known only in passing back then, now a quietly successful young man with none of Tochi's noise and all of Uche's steadiness. What began as small talk over a wholesale counter slowly grew into something neither of them was chasing, but both were grateful to find. He knew her story, all of it, and never once flinched from it. A year later, they married quietly. No live band, no asoy being 3 colors, just family, and a peace Chioma had almost forgotten a wedding could hold. And the woman a bitter man once called Barren in front of a whole street gave birth, not many months after, to twins, a boy and a girl, healthy and loud and utterly hers. Word of Chioma's new life eventually reached Tochi, the way word always finds its way back to the person who least deserves peace of mind. He called her once, years later, his voice smaller than she remembered it, hinting that things had not gone well for him since and that his new marriages had brought him neither the sons he demanded nor the respect he assumed wealth would buy him forever. Chioma listened politely, and when he finally paused, she only said this: "I hope you find whatever you are looking for, Tochi. I found mine already." She did not raise her voice. She did not remind him of the rain, or the bags, or the word he called her in front of a whole street. She had already learned, standing soaked outside her own front door years earlier, that the loudest revenge a woman can take is simply to build a life so full and so peaceful that the man who tried to break her becomes a small, forgettable chapter in it. Today, Chioma runs 3 jewelry stores across 2 states, mentors young girls from difficult homes exactly like the one she grew up in, and often tells them the same thing whenever a handsome car and a soft voice start looking a little too convincing. My daughters, all that glitters is not gold. Ask questions before you hand over your whole self. And whatever anybody tells you, whatever pressure they put on your shoulders, never let another person's voice grow louder in your head than your own. If Chioma's story moved you even a little before you leave this page, do one thing for me before you leave. Tap that subscribe button and join our growing family of story lovers here. It costs nothing and it keeps stories like hers alive on this channel. And then tell me honestly in the comments, was Chioma right to finally speak up that night, or should she have left much earlier? I read every single comment, so don't hold back. And while you are typing, tell me where in the world you are watching this from tonight. I love seeing how far these stories travel. But before you go anywhere else, look at your screen right now. There's another story already waiting for you there, and I promise you it is every bit as powerful as this one. Go on, tap it. I'll see you inside.